The next Action Hub event will be starting in 1 minute. Please take your seat and switch your phone to silent. If you don't have a seat, we invite you to watch the event online on the UNFCCC website or on the COP platform, but please do not stand on the side of the Action Hub.
Everyone needs a climate-resilient home. I'm Elizabeth Hausler, the founder and CEO of Build Change, and welcome to our Make Your Home Climate Resilient adventure game. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Why do we need climate-resilient housing? Well, because 40% of the world's population is expected to live in vulnerable housing by 2030 if we do not act more quickly. Disasters are becoming more frequent and more severe. More stronger winds, more fires, more floods, extreme heat. But we can do something about this. We can make housing resilient. Disaster-resilient housing is the past, present, and future of climate resilience and adaptation. It is how we can ensure that we not only survive the impacts of climate change, but we thrive in spite of them. And we can make small changes to buildings to make them more disaster resilient. And we're going to have some fun doing that today. Build Change is a 17-year-old systems change catalyst in the field of disaster resilient housing. We have made 93,000 buildings safer from earthquakes and the extremes of weather, impacting nearly 500,000 people and helping to protect $1.8 billion of housing infrastructure assets worldwide. We are here representing the Resilient Housing Initiative of the Race to Resilience, the UN-backed global campaign to catalyze a step change in global ambition for climate resilience. So this is a Climate Action Hub, so we're ready for some action. Is everyone ready to play the game? Here's Monica to lead us off.
All right, thank you, everyone. I'm Monica Schrader. I am the Associate Director of Global Advocacy at Build Change. And I want to ask, by show of hands, if you could raise your hand if you are passionate about climate adaptation. All right, that's a good number. And I want you to raise your hands if you've had a long day. You are in the right place. It is time for some fun. So, paraphrasing somebody who I heard speak earlier today, we are in a serious situation when it comes to climate action. So it is time for some serious fun. And what we hope to do today is to demonstrate that you can play a role in housing resilience no matter where you are, no matter what resources that you have. So this is how today will work. You will be playing as the unluckiest homeowner in the world. No matter where you move to, disasters hit. So if you could take out your phones and scan the QR code here, or go to slido.com and put in code 090204. Anyone live streaming this event is welcome to join in as well. We will go ahead and get the game started. While you're doing that, I'll let you know that sometimes there's more than one right answer. Sometimes there's no easy answer, because that's how resilience works. Not everything is a clear-cut path. It is often difficult. But when I cue you to vote, choose the letter that corresponds with the option that you want to select, and we will do majority rules today. All right. Has everybody got their code ready? We will begin. So, Elizabeth, do you want to tell us a little bit before we jump into the game on housing resilience and inclusion?
So yeah, we want to make this lighthearted, but we also recognize that before we dive in, we need to talk about equity and inclusion because not everyone experiences disasters the same way. Women and children are 14 times more likely to die in a disaster than men. 14 times more likely. That's just completely unacceptable. 22 million people are displaced every year due to climate and other disasters, and 26 million people are pushed into poverty each year by disaster. So as you're playing the game, think about how you would play it as yourself, but also think about, put yourself in someone else's shoes as you think about the alternatives and the choices that are in front of us.
All right, so let's get started with our first scenario. I am activating the poll, and the first choice is, where do you want to move to? Option A is a riverside cottage in Scotland. Option B, a woodland retreat in California. Option C, a beachfront oasis in the Caribbean. Or option D, bustling urban getaway in India. I'll give you 15 seconds to lock in your vote. All right, we are repping the home team here in Scotland. Majority chose a riverside cottage in Scotland. So let's get started with the first scenario. You think your dream home might be in a flood zone. How do you determine your risk? Is it option A, do nothing? Your neighbor said a flood hasn't hit in 75 years. Option B, ask the person who sold you your house. Or option C, consult the flood maps issued by your local authority. 10 seconds to lock in your response. All right, Elizabeth, we have some knowledgeable people here who chose option C, consult the flood maps issued by your local flood authority.
That is definitely the right answer. However, and it can be a very useful tool, we've included the Scottish Environment Protection Agency link here because this is a Scotland scenario, but many countries have linked to flood maps. But note this, that flood maps and building codes in general often lag behind knowledge and best practice. So even if it says your house is outside the flood zone, it may be that climate change is going to change that in the future.
All right, let's move to our next question. The weather forecast is reporting high risk of another flash flood. Time to take immediate precautions. What steps can you take to protect yourself? Do you want to A, relocate to the second story or roof until the flood subsides? B, do nothing and plan to drive away once the flooding starts? C, move your electrical equipment to the basement and close the basement doors to protect it. What do you think we should do? I'll give you 5 more seconds to make a choice. And by an overwhelming majority, they chose option A, relocate to the second story or roof until the flood subsides. Elizabeth, do you want to walk us through why this is the right response and maybe what some of the other responses would have resulted in?
That is definitely the right response. Relocate to your second story or to your roof if you can, but it would have been better to evacuate, right, before you got to the point where there was a flood right at your doorstep. You definitely don't want to wait until the last minute and absolutely avoid driving through floodwaters if that's an option. So relocating to your second story if you have one, or your roof if you don't. Now, putting the electrical equipment in the basement, that sounds like a bad idea because that's likely the first thing to flood. And doing nothing and waiting to the last minute, of course, yeah, please don't do that.
Definitely don't wait until the last minute. Floodwaters are higher than they seem sometimes. You do not want to drive through them. So let's move on then to the next question. You're really tired of all of these floods. What can you do to minimize your long-term flood risk? Do you want to A, move to a new location, B, elevate your house, or C, add a second story? Go ahead and lock in your votes. Okay, so we have a tie, almost a tie. It's changing every minute, but most people want to either A, move to a new location, or B, elevate your house. Elizabeth, why don't you talk us through what the right answer might be here?
Any of these options could work, right? But they're all quite expensive. They're all quite expensive. To completely move to a new location, to elevate your house is a pretty significant structural engineering undertaking, and to add a second story requires investment as well. We have a program in Honduras working with folks affected by hurricanes last year to add a second story, but it requires cash assistance as well as technical assistance to make it happen. So any of these options can work. They're all very expensive options. So again, we need buy-in and leadership and financing from government partners in order to make these options a reality for everyone.
All right, thanks, Elizabeth. So, as she said, these are all strong options, and that actually concludes our flood scenario. So we have some resources here on preparing for floods, both in Scotland, since that's where the scenario is based, as well as general guidance. And we do have enough time to run a second scenario, so why don't we give it a shot with a different location? So polling is open again. Let us know if you want to go to a woodland retreat, a beachfront oasis, or a bustling urban getaway. And maybe think about what disasters might come your way depending on the location that you choose. All right, we have a clear winner, a woodland retreat in California. So that is what we're going to next. First question. You found out wildfires are common. Where do you want to build your home? Do you build it A, on a slope, B, in a neighborhood, C, on a large lot of wooded land? All right, 5 more seconds. And folks have chosen option B, in a neighborhood. Elizabeth, why don't you explain to us what a neighborhood entails with wildfire risk?
This was, again, kind of like the last question in the last scenario, is that there's no real clear right answer. It's your preference, and there are risks in any of these scenarios. If you build your house in a neighborhood, you'll be right next to other homes, which may spread far from one to the other. So a key thing there is to remove the combustible material around your home and in between homes. If you build your house in the forest, there's a clear opportunity for combustible materials around your house. So again, clear that 6-foot perimeter around your home. And if you build it on a slope and a fire starts in the forest, that updraft can make the fire go from the woods into your house. So there's risks in each of these choices, but there are things that can be done to mitigate those risks.
All right, let's find out what some of those are. So continuing with in a neighborhood, which is what you chose. The next question is, a wildfire is coming. What is one thing you should do to minimize risk? Should you A, seal non-mechanical vents, B, put sandbags outside of your house, or C, pre-burn some of the trees on your property? I'll give you 10 seconds to lock in which one you think is the best answer. All right, we might need a little help on this one. People chose option C, pre-burn some of the trees on your property.
Yikes. Uh-oh, you burned your house down. Uh-oh, you guys were doing so good up until this point. But this one, okay, so never do a controlled burn yourself. That is something only for the experts, and especially when you live in a place where everything is already very dry and there are fire conditions all around you. So we want to avoid starting a fire. Want to try again? Give them another chance?
All right, we'll give another chance. Do you want to, option A, seal non-mechanical vents, or option B, put sandbags outside your house? All right, people have chosen put sandbags outside of your house.
Sandbags, maybe not so much for a fire. Sandbags can be useful for flood and landslide, but they're not your go-to for fire resilience. Sealing your non-mechanical vents prevents air from getting inside your house. That air could be carrying embers with it, get inside your house, and start something combustible in your home on fire. So the best answer is seal those vents.
All right. Moving then to the next question. What else should you do for fire resistance? Do you want to, option A, keep your chimney open at all times to promote airflow? Option B, close your garage door. Option C, put your deck furniture, if you have any, in front of your house. Three more seconds. All right, you guys are back on track. Close your garage door.
Yes. Again, consistent with the last answer, avoid air coming inside to your house, bringing embers with it. If you have a garage, you may have combustible materials in there, so you want to keep that garage door closed. We don't want to open the chimney or other vents or anything that could allow air to flow inside the house. Clearing the deck furniture, clear everything within a 6-foot perimeter around your home to avoid anything combustible surrounding your house during a fire.
All right. Thanks, Elizabeth. So, closing your garage door was definitely the right answer. And let's move to the next question. So, great job. Your house survived the fire. What can you do to protect and recover from fires in the future? Do you want to A, use fire-resistant building materials, B, trim trees and shrubs, or C, replace your wooden fence with non-combustible material? Combustible meaning something that catches on fire. Five more seconds to lock in your thoughts. Okay, this one might have been an easy one, but there's more than one right answer. So you all chose use fire-resistant building materials. That is definitely a good option. Elizabeth, why don't you tell us about that one and the other ones?
Yeah, that's a great option, using fire-resistant building materials, but that's an expensive thing that you have to start when you build the house. So the other options, trimming trees, especially right around your property, clearing your gutters if you have them out of leaves and from leaves and branches, anything that can burn. Maybe replacing, if you've got a wooden fence or some other wood structure around your house, replace that. So rid your entire perimeter from anything that can burn.
All right. So that concludes our fire scenario. Great job improving your fire resilience. And we will do one last scenario since we have time for it today. So I want you to choose whether you want to move to a beachfront oasis in the Caribbean or bustling urban getaway in India. We're going to give some love to the global south. Okay. We have bustling urban getaway in India. You are at risk of extreme heat. How do you know if your family is exhibiting signs of heat exhaustion? Is it that they are heavily sweating? Option A. Option B, signs of dizziness. Option C, nausea or vomiting. All right, you all chose option C, nausea or vomiting, but there was close, I think for very good reason.
Yeah, these are all signs of effects of extreme heat, heat exhaustion, heat stress. So take heed of any of these signs in yourself, in others, especially elderly, children, vulnerable, who may not be able to articulate that they're having these symptoms. So these are all ways of identifying sources of heat exhaustion. We've got another resource here from the US government about how to identify these signs. Take action before it comes too severe.
Okay, next question. You don't have access to consistent electricity to power an air conditioner. What should you do to minimize heat? Do you want to paint your roof white, chop down your trees, or add more windows and doors? Option A, B, or C. All right, we have some very knowledgeable people in here. You want to paint your roof white. Elizabeth, why don't you tell us why?
Yeah, that's a great idea, especially in a climate that's hot year-round, and especially if you have a concrete or masonry building, a flat concrete roof. Painting it white has been shown to reduce the interior temperature by a few degrees. So that's a great option. Obviously, hire an expert and get the right substance. May not work so well in places that are hot in the summer and cold in the winter, because then you'll not get that heat that comes in the winter. So, but in some places, this is a very, very good option. Not such a good idea to chop down your trees, right? Tree canopy can reduce also urban temperatures. And what was the other option? Adding more windows and doors. Yeah, that can also increase ventilation, but take care if you do that to make sure your building remains resilient to other disasters, is safe from break-ins, resilient to earthquakes. We don't want to put too many openings, especially in masonry buildings, when those buildings could be vulnerable to other disasters. So there's a trade-off there.
All right. Moving then to the next question. A heat wave has arrived, and it looks like it will be 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 37 degrees Celsius for at least several days. What should you do to keep your family cool? Do you want to A, block heat and sun with window shades and drapes? B, continuously run your fan? Or C, limit your use of your oven or stove? Go ahead and lock in your answers. Okay. People have chosen option A, block heat and sun with window shades and drapes. Great job. This was one of 2 correct answers.
Yes, preventing that sun from entering your house with shades and drapes is a great option. Just don't limit your ventilation. The other good answer here is limit the use of your stove or any source of heat inside your home. Running a fan, that depends on humidity level to determine whether or not that's an effective solution or one that's just going to make you hotter.
Okay. Next question then. What should you do, or what should you try to keep available in your house if you are at risk of extreme heat? Drinking water, air conditioning, lightweight clothing, or sunscreen? All right, by overwhelming majority, people are choosing drinking water, but these are all good options.
Yeah, these are all good options. Drinking water is obviously one of the most important ones. Air conditioning. We probably should talk about this. Maybe one day there will be a world in which everyone has access to clean energy air conditioning, right? It's one of the best ways of keeping cool in a heat wave and extreme heat. So, but these are all good options. Drinking water, air conditioning, lightweight clothing, and sunscreen.
All right, so that concludes our extreme heat scenario. We've provided some resources as well for protecting yourself against extreme heat and ways that you can prepare yourself and your home for instances of extreme heat. That is all the scenarios I think that we have time for today, but
Yeah.
if you guys don't mind switching to the other screen, there are more scenarios available. If you'd like to play the game, we do have one last one that we didn't get to today. So please feel free to try other scenarios, and I will pass it to Elizabeth for the closing.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your participation. We hope you enjoyed the game, and we hope you learned just one or two things about the small things that can be done to make your house climate resilient. We all need a climate resilient home, and it's time to make that happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you.